I swam with sea turtles! Yes! I'm so happy. This was something that was on my bucket list. It was actually on the first page of my bucket list, and I was really worried I wasn't going to get to do it. I wrote it down because I'd heard that in some places in Japan you could swim with sea turtles, but it's still actually, it's not guaranteed even if you go to those places, but I put it down because it's something I've always wanted to do. And then as it was coming time for me to leave Japan, I was like, I only really have one shot at this. I'm only going to go to one of those places where you can swim with sea turtles. And if they're not there, if I can't, then I don't know. I'm not sure I can really, because I'll be leaving Japan in 9 weeks. And I don't think after this I'll be able to afford to fly to somewhere where you can swim with sea turtles again. So it was now or never, and it happened. Yes. So I'll tell you the magical story of my holiday in Okinawa, because if there's one thing everybody loves, it's hearing about other people's holidays. So I went with my sister and her husband. We flew to Okinawa from Tokyo, stayed overnight in Tokyo, but we didn't really do anything. We just kind of checked into the hostel and left and went to the airport the next day. That was because I had to go to Tokyo after work. Like I was I think I've now used up all my days off, which is good because I'm leaving soon. But yeah, I didn't have any days off to spare, so I used the last of them to go to Okinawa, and I had to travel after work. So we got to Tokyo very late at night, and then we flew to Okinawa the next day. And Okinawa was crazy hot. It was very hot the entire time. Obviously, it's tropical. It's going to be hot. It reminded me what it's like living in Japan in the summer. It's there's this kind of constant unpleasantness in the air. There's something following you around, walking in your shadow, sort of constantly prodding you in the back of the neck, and that something is moisture. It's just everywhere. And I mean, as I've said, in Japan in the summer, it's very humid. I think it's humid all the time in Okinawa. I don't know how those people survive. I couldn't do that. But it was nice for a couple of days. We flew into Naha, which is the main island, and I believe the capital city. Not entirely sure, but we flew into Naha. We had like a day in Naha. We booked to go parasailing, but that was cancelled because of rain. There was no rain. It just was cancelled because there might have possibly been rain that day. There wasn't, so. But oh well. My sister and her husband also, they did a Mario Kart thing, but which I wasn't allowed to do because I don't have a driver's license, which is my own fault. But yeah, they went go karting around the city, and I sat in Starbucks and read my book. It's very nice. I also wrote something. So yeah. And then the next day, this is where it gets really good. We took a ferry to Zumami Island. Zumami Island being this, I think, quite small island that is just so paradisal. It's so picturesque. It's so lovely. It's so just picture perfect. It's almost obscene. This beach we were on. So we'd rented a campsite, which was almost directly on the beach. There was like a small copse of trees separating our camp from the beach. It was like 200 meters, and it was just stunning. It was gorgeous. The water was so clear. The sand was just this gorgeous shade of yellow white. There was just beautiful views wherever you looked of other islands, of just coral in the water. It was stunning. Really was one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to. And there was like 5 people there, including us. It was insane. It was lovely. And yeah, we rented a snorkel. We rented some snorkels from a rental shop who seemed very annoyed to have customers. This is this has been a theme recently in my travels of going to kind of small town businesses, either hotels or snorkel rental places or restaurants or just anything really, and them seeming to be annoyed that they have any kind of patronage. They just don't seem to like it. Oh well. But we rented these snorkels and we got in the water and we started snorkeling and we snorkeled for about, I don't know, 20 minutes and then we saw our first turtle. I was very excited because, as I said, it's not guaranteed. It's by no means guaranteed. I think you could easily go to Okinawa and not see turtles at all. And we saw one and it was very close and we had a very good view. And I saw it and I was like, oh, yes, this I'm going to, pass my bucket list. I'm going to, be in the same space as this turtle for a couple of minutes, and then I'll have completed it. But it was more than a couple of minutes. I followed this turtle at a distance. I was respectful. I wasn't just like getting all up in its business, like, hey, turtle, what's up? I was staying back. Um, Not that the turtle seemed to mind. Some other people got very close, and the turtle did not pay them any mind at all. It was just doing its own thing. It was just chewing on the roots that were at the bottom of the bay. Yeah. But I followed this thing for like, I think the first turtle I must have followed for 40 minutes, maybe more. And I was just watching it, and they are so gorgeous. They're so majestic. They're like angels of the sea. It's like they fly and they're so calm and considered in their movements, and they have the most soulful eyes. Oh, it's gorgeous. It's just lovely. And I followed this thing for like, as I said, 40 minutes. My brother-in-law and my sister, who are both massive animal lovers, actual like animal experts professionally, they eventually got bored, and they left the water, and I was still just following this thing because I was so entranced by it. And I mean, like, it wasn't necessarily doing anything particularly interesting. It's not like I observed a turtle doing the can or anything, but it just watching it was hypnotic, and it was gorgeous. And then eventually so there were bounds around the bay which you weren't meant to swim out of. And we were told this was for a safety reason, but my sister reckoned it was actually a conservation thing. And if it's a safety thing for me, I'm kind of like, I don't mind breaking it, but if it's a conservation thing, I do mind breaking it. Like, I don't mind putting my own self in danger, I mind putting the planet in danger. So I observed them because they were a conservation thing. So the turtle eventually kind of swam past the bounds, and I sort of floated in the bounds, just watching it go with my mask, and then I got out of the water because my sister and my brother-in-law had gone out because they were pleading that it was cold, and I got out for a little while. I was only out for about 10 minutes, and then I was like going back in, like it's so beautiful. And then I saw some more turtles. There were two this time, one of which was a lot bigger than the other. So I don't know if there were more than one species or if it was just that it was an older turtle. It had different markings on its shell, but I'm not sure how uniform the markings on turtle shells are. I should really have googled that before I made this video. Oh well. But yeah, there was a big and a small one, and I decided to follow the small one because I was just curious. And the small one was fantastic because the small one clearly didn't have great lung power, so the small had to surface a lot, and like they're literally when they surface, they swim up to thing, and then they just put their head out, go like, and then just go back down, and it looks incredibly comical. Like turtles' heads are actually quite funny when separated from their body. Like and it was actually one of my favorite things when we went swimming on the beach to just look out at this bay and just see turtle heads periodically just kind of going. They're such dignified creatures, and it's such an undignified way to exist. But yes, so this small turtle had to surface a lot, and including it sometimes it went up, did like, came back down. It was immediately like, no, I need more. And it's like me when I go to a water fountain, I'm like, cooling water. Now I'm quenched. No, I'm not. More. And it did this like one time. It went up and surfaced 5 times in a 20-second span. It was very funny. And apart from that, it was doing the same thing as the other one. It was just sort of crawling along, eating all the plants at the bottom of the bay. What was interesting was this one was definitely less certain in its movements. It sort of bumped into things more. It was a bit clumsier. So I think it was just a younger turtle. And then, so I followed that one for, I don't know. It's very hard to time things when you're snorkeling. I don't have a watch. My phone is not waterproof. We'll get to that in a second. My phone is not waterproof, so I have no clue how long I followed this thing. But I followed it for a long time. And then I got out and I spoke to my sister because I wanted to find out what our plans for the rest of the day were. But our plans for the day were pretty much snorkel on this beach as long as possible. At that point, the lifeguards left, but we were like, the water was so calm, the water was so pristine and calm, and we were all fairly confident swimmers, so we were like, it's okay, we can stick it out. And we went back in, and I saw a fourth turtle. So I thought, oh, okay, I'll follow this turtle. But then I got distracted because I was following this turtle around, and then I suddenly saw something on the side of my vision go like whoop, right up to the surface. And turtles don't move like that. They're not that decisive in their movements. I don't know if you know this, but turtles are very slow. But this thing was moving very fast, and I realized it was a black and white striped sea snake. And I've never seen a sea snake in the wild. And I'd seen a lot of turtles at that point, and I love turtles, and I would happily watch them again. But I was like, oh, a sea snake, that's interesting. And so I watched this sea snake, and the way the sea snake moved was entirely different and very interesting. And it kind of glided along the bottom, and it did that very sort of seductive yet kind of sinister thing that snakes do. It's like, and what was great was it was just poking its head under rocks, and all these fish would just scatter from the rocks, and then the snake would be like, whatever, just move along, and then the fish would go back in. And I was amazed actually how long the snake could stay underwater, because as long as the older turtle could keep its breath for a very long time, the snake only went up once the entire time I was following it, and I was following it for a long time. And I did follow it, and yet again kept a respectful distance, watched this snake with great fascination. Then I got out and Googled what it was, and it is in fact very poisonous. It has the same amount of venom as a cobra. It's called a Chinese sea snake, or a black and white banded skate, I think was the name. Very dangerous. Admittedly, mostly dangerous if you get in its way. So if you try and pick it up, which you should not do, or if this is the worrying thing, if it goes up for air and you happen to be in its way when it's going up for air, which I think could easily have happened to me or another swimmer, because, as I said, it moved very quickly from the seabed to the surface, and I was just lucky I wasn't in its way because I hadn't seen it before that. I hadn't spotted it. So, yeah. Also, apparently sometimes they just come up and try to, like, taste divers in that way that snakes do. Not like they bite them, but, they're sort of like thing. And I think if it had done that to me, I would have freaked out. I would have freaked the fuck out. So it was a good thing it didn't. It had no interest in me at all, even though I was following it for a very long time, which is good for me. So yeah, venomous sea snake, which I just sort of blithely, I was like, oh look, a snake. So I think that's four stanzas. He knows I love snakes. My sister saw a crown of thorns starfish, which I didn't see. I'm so annoyed. I really wanted to see one of those. Well, I got sea turtles and a sea snake, so I'm happy. We also saw so yeah, I'll get to that bit in a second. So yeah, we snorkeled for a long time that day, and then we went to sleep because we were very tired. Woke up the next day, went swimming again, which was fantastic. We didn't have the snorkels then because we'd returned them, but just swimming in this water was delightful. It was the perfect temperature. It was so refreshing because, as I said, the air in Okinawa is very heavy. It's very noticeable. It's that thing of you don't realize that air is all around you until you go somewhere very humid, and then you're like, oh yeah, no, the air is a physical thing with which I interact constantly. But the water was divine. It was great. So we swam in it a lot. And then sadly, oh no, wait, oh, no, and then we went kayaking, which was lovely. I have been kayaking a couple of times in my life. My sister and her husband are very experienced kayakers. They actually have a rating, like I think they said they're level 1 or something. I'm not like that. I've been kayaking and I roughly know the principles, but not enough to rank myself. And so we went kayaking, and I was in the kayak with the guy who ran the place. And I'm going to be honest, we only kayaked for about 20 minutes to get to this other island, and for the vast majority of the 20 minutes, the other guy was not paddling. I don't know if that's because I was too erratic and he couldn't get my pace, or because I was just doing it too hard. I don't know. But yeah, we kayaked to this other island where there was better coral. Sadly, there were no turtles, but there was better coral and there were more fish. And we went snorkeling around this reef, and it was great. It was fantastic. I realized this is a very boring video visually for adventures around a reef, that it's me sitting in front of a bunch of books. But my phone does not work underwater. None of my sisters, neither my sister's nor my sister's husband phone works underwater. We'll get to that in a minute. And the guy who was running the thing did have an underwater camera, which he took a lot of pictures on and gave us on a disc. None of us have computers that run discs, so maybe one day there'll be pictures of this amazing reef I'm talking about, but until then, just listen to my sonorous voice describe it. Yeah. So we saw all kinds of coral, brain coral, the other kinds of coral which I don't know the name of, and we saw just hundreds and hundreds of fish. I finally saw a cleaner fish, which I was very happy about. I saw like a kind of a queue of parrotfish, like waiting to go to the beauty salon, which I know it's terrible to anthropomorphize animals, like it's stupid and it's harmful, but I can't help it. We saw, oh, this is so much fun. We saw the grumpiest clownfish. He was so grumpy, and he was so territorial. Like because my sister is an animal expert, and we were very, we were very respectful to the animals. We didn't get up close, so we were about 3-4 foot away from this clownfish as an enemy, and he was still just there like, I'll fight you. Stay away from my enemy. It was so funny. Such a grumpy clownfish. This was something interesting because I had previously been snorkeling and scuba diving in the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, and I had learned some diverese because obviously divers need their own way to communicate if they don't have radios, and so this is diver language for clownfish, and this means I've seen a clownfish. And just because we were snorkeling, like I told my brother-in-law that as an interesting fact. This was before we'd even seen a clownfish. I just was like, do you want to know some interesting diver language? He was like, sure. And then later, he actually did see the clownfish, and he used the diver language, which I was very happy about because it was a skill I didn't think would ever come in handy, and it did. It allowed me to see a clownfish because he managed to communicate what he'd seen without having to come up for air. So that was great. Yes, and then we kayaked back, and then sadly we had to get a ferry back to the mainland, which is, if that's the worst thing that happens to you in your life, you're living a pretty good life. and we drove north to Nago. We'd rented a car, and oh, this is something I want to say. So lots of people say you need a car in Okinawa. You need a car to get around Okinawa, and I think to get around Naha, you definitely need a car. However, doing the first bit of Naha and the trip to Zamami Island, we did not use a car at all. We walked, we took ferries, we took the monorail, but we did not need a car. So if people say you need a car for Okinawa, you do for certain things, but not for all of it. So don't. That's not entirely true. But yeah, we drove to Nago, and we went to the aquarium, the lovely aquarium, Shuraumi Aquarium, which has whale sharks, and whale sharks are always fun to see. And we went to Ocean Expo Park, saw some manatees, went for a swim in the sea, and that was not a great swim, especially after. I mean, it was a fine swim on its own, but after the last few days of snorkeling in pristine waters, the swimming at a beach when there was a school trip to said beach was not as appealing. But the aquarium was very nice. It's it's got a very big tank with whale sharks, as I said, and whale sharks are always lovely to watch. And then the final day, we snorkeled in Mermaid's Grotto, which was yet again delightful. Big tip: if you go to Mermaid's Grotto, please, please, please wear some kind of footwear. We rented scuba boots, or if you just wear something that protects your feet, because there were urchins and anemones for days. There were more urchins than a Dickensian two-parter. Oh my god. Like, I was genuinely worried because the water was very shallow at points and it was very hard not to just knock into something poisonous. So it was a lovely experience. Don't get me wrong; it's really worth diving and seeing, because yet again, loads of coral, loads of fish. This incredibly ominous crevasse near the surf. Well, not near the surface, but in sort of an ominous crevasse in the coral, which freaked me out. I don't know why, but just looking down at it, I was like, I don't want to be there. Yeah, gorgeous scenery, lovely to swim in. Do be careful of urchins and anemones. We had rented boots and we wore long sleeves and stuff, so we didn't get stung, but you could very easily be stung. So if you go, please do be careful. Yeah, and then we drove back to the airport, flew home, and we were back. So yes, it was a lovely trip. It was so much fun. And oh, my brother-in-law's phone, just before we finish up. There is a statue of a whale on Zumami Island, and it's an interesting statue in that it's bisected. So over here is the whale's head, and then this bit is water, and then here is the whale's tail, and it's not really accurate. Like, it would make the whale incredibly long in the middle, which it's not, like, humpback whales are not that long to scale, but it's a funny statue. It's a nice statue to interact with, and my brother-in-law and I wanted a picture with the statue, so we swam out. And my brother-in-law bought his phone, and we said, "Don't bring your phone, leave it, and we'll just take." Well, my sister just said she'd take a picture of us from the shore, and he did bring his phone, and his phone got wet and stopped working. Yay! So that's another caution: wear boots. Don't bring your phone into the sea. Yes, and then we came home. It was a lovely holiday, and I got to cross something off my bucket list, which I'm so grateful for. And just, I had, I think, what would be the optimal experience with turtles in the water. The water was pristine. There were no waves. The turtles were calm and happy and in their natural environment. They didn't care about the humans. They had a bit where they could go where the humans couldn't go. That was, it was inaccessible to us. So they were choosing to be there. It was phenomenal, and I'm so happy that I got to do that. It was lovely. Okinawa, highly recommended.